Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. I'm your adventure guide, Bear Woznick. And the coolest thing about my show is that we get to interview the coolest guests. We have with us today a guy who, for no reason at all, likes to run in the middle of the winter. We have Rich Sosa with us on our show today. Aloha, Rich.
Aloha. How you doing, Bear?
Dude, it's really weird. This is a radio show. It goes, I guess, over almost 500 terrestrial radio stations. It's on Sirius FM. It's on shortwave radio. It's on every podcast you can imagine. But we also do this on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And what I'm seeing in the background behind you is just pure white. What is that? What is that white stuff outside?
That's that we call that around here. We call that snow. And
Snow. Okay.
yeah,
Where is here? Where is here?
I live in Racine, Wisconsin. About 5 blocks from Lake Michigan. And it's funny you asked because I was talking to my neighbor. We were shoveling a couple days ago. We got about 8 inches of snow, and my neighbor Burton is a freshwater surfer.
Oh, no, cool. That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, man.
So
That's awesome.
he's from Huntington Beach, actually. And so when he moved here, he found out that he could still surf. So he's got a website. He freshwater surfs. He's like, oh yeah, man, check out my latest clips from Sheboygan. So Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Sheboygan surfs up in Sheboygan.
Yeah,
But I don't think so right now so much, right? Isn't it like kind of frozen over?
he just went like 4 days ago.
Oh man, that is crazy.
So that's your next show, like coming out to Wisconsin.
Absolutely not. I know Christopher Stefanik went
Yeah.
up there with the Real Life Catholic, but you know what? I gave up wetsuits a long time ago, man. I like surfing nice warm water like Hawaii. Although interestingly enough, we just surfed in Israel about a month ago, so that was
Oh
pretty cool.
no.
Yeah, but
Very
the water was nice and warm there. We went tandem surfing and we got to know the local surf tribe. In fact, when I came out of the water, there's this one of the big old guy there standing there, kind of blocking my way coming up the hill, and he goes, "You're Bear Woznick, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, so he recognized us from our surfing from the surfing world. So it's kind of a small tribe, The surfing community is a small tribe, and you recognize surfers when you're out and about. You go, that dude surfs. I know that, even if you're in Manhattan, or some crazy island like that. But isn't that kind of true with what you do? You're a runner, aren't you? Guys are kind of like a weird little tribe all to your own, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to come out of being a hermit runner, and so I'm sort of coming back into it because I had taken 9 years off of running, and so I just recently got back into it in this past March, so it's almost been a year.
So
And so I'm just getting back into the running community. But yeah, it's a lot like that, like even locally, and then more regionally, and different different levels of running, trail runners and things. You start to see some of the same people at the same races and the same events. So yeah, it's a lot like that.
yeah, it's a tribe. Hey, so with all that snow out there, I mean, what do you do for running in the middle of the winter like that?
Well, I'm a little under the weather right now, and everybody's telling me it's because I need to stop running outside. So a lot of runners will come in, and then they'll run on the treadmill, or they'll run on the track, and I can't do that. Like literally, like my mind isn't made like that. I have to be outside. I have to run. Otherwise, I just kind of get this like defeatist mentality. I can go to the Y with my daughter, and she can go put out 6 miles on the treadmill, and I can go 5 minutes on the treadmill, and then I'm like, I'm done. But if I go outside, I can go 10, 12, 15 miles, even if it's cold and it's in the snow. There's something about going somewhere, and it's the adventure. I just get bored inside. So I just try to dress warm, cover my mouth, get my yak tracks, and make an adventure, and then I'll get out there. But been under the weather for the last couple of days, so I haven't actually been out for about 3 days.
So the running isn't just because you want to go get exercise. There's just something about it. You're getting out there. There's that movement through space, up hills. There's inclines. There's corners. There's so much more to it. I used to run a little bit, mostly only on trails though. But
Yeah.
then, I started out by hiking trails,
Okay.
a lot of hiking, and then when I was getting my first degree, Ninja Black Belt, I did a lot of running up the Santa Monica Mountains when I lived out in California, up and down, and it was just so nice. It was almost like when you're running down a hill, it's almost like you're flying. And then I kind of said, "What are all these guys doing on these bicycles?
Yeah.
They get air conditioning. They go a little bit faster. They go further." So then I got into mountain bikes, and eventually I pedaled my bicycle across the United States. But there is something about that. I don't like to get on a stationary bike and pedal.
Yeah.
It's not why it's the difference between working out and playing.
Absolutely.
I don't go work out. I go play. I find something fun that gets me going. So
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's really like I'm not a workout guy. I like to play, and I think, man, you just described it perfect. It's just about play. It's about the adventure, and I'm a 12-year-old kid at heart, and so getting out in the mud, in the snow and all the elements, and there's something very godly about being in the presence of all the earthly creation God made, and the in hearing like the pine needles under your feet and the swishing of the snow, whatever it might be. Sounds corny, but it's not, man. It's you get it. It's about play, and the more you play, the actually something happens. You get in better shape.
yeah. Wait, let me ask
You-
you this question. So, do you like to trail run?
I love trail running. That's my favorite kind of running.
Well, trails are such an interesting. Trails are organic. They're like a living thing. Especially when
Mhm.
you've run or mountain biked on the same trail. The trail begins. Sometimes a new detour will develop, or there'll be a
Yeah.
cave in someplace, and you got to do a go around, or there's a creek bed or something that's shifted things around. And when you run on a trail, it's not like someone said, "I'm going to put a trail here." It's like there was a bunny rabbit that decided to go there, and then more animals followed that little trail to the water, and then people took that little path the bunnies made, and then more and more people, and then sometimes it becomes a wider path, and then it becomes a road, and then it becomes a freeway. But trails are organic; they're living things, and you know what I'm trying to say? It's like the trails kind of have a life of their own, even and through the seasons, they change too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it'd be very easy just to take a straight path on these trails, but a lot of the trails we do, they're kind of all over the place and on different surface and single track and rocks are still there. The trees are broken and fallen down and they're still in the middle of the trail. And there's just uh there's just something very different about that, and being aware of every step you take.
Oh yeah, you have to be alert because it's not like
Yeah.
a yeah. Well, here's the point. Here's the thing is, by the way, Kalapapa Trail. There's like 23 switchbacks I think on the way back on down there from my home island of Molokai to go down to where St. Damien was. But you know what? You run down that thing, and then you have to basically getting back up that steep trail is almost impossible. But I
Yeah.
always like to go up the steep hill first and then run down it. But Kalapapa, you run down it, then you got to come back. But the thing about it is, there's something about this ancient path that attracts us as mountain bikers or runners or even cross country skiers, and it's similar to the ancient path we as Catholics have available to us. We follow the ancient path. We don't follow the newest road. We go follow the ancient path. That path that was laid down by uh, even going back to King David, and even further back to Abraham. We follow this ancient path, this ancient pattern, these ancient beliefs, and and we have the early church fathers and the saints and the tradition of the church and the sacraments and the catechism. That is something that I think people want to get into. People like to get into ancient wisdom. So I'm going to try something new. I'm going to go into new age wisdom, which they somehow think is old, because it's based on old crystals or some Hindu religion or something. But as Catholic Christians, we follow this living path that was laid down by the Christians that went before us, this organic living path, and we call that the Catholic Church. We're talking with Rich Sosa. Rich, we're going to be back in a few moments. We're going to take a little break here, but I just give me a quick little blurb. The website people could go to if they want to join you on this run you're about to do, and we'll talk more about that when we get back. But what's the website?
Run 1010. The numerals run1010.com.
So in surfing, we like to hang 10, and runners, this is the Run 1010, but I bet that's from John 1010. I come that you can have life and live to the fullest, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking, one of my friends, Luke Rogers, he's Aaron Rodgers' brother. He was with me on a reality show called Clean Break, and he's got tattooed on his ribs that scripture verse. And, rib tattoos really hurt. So he came that we might have life and have it to the abundantly. This is Bear Woznick. What's the website again, Rich, if they want to sign up for this run?
Run1010.com. That's the numerals run1010.com.
And you can go to my website, bearwoznick.com or deepadventure.com, and you can find all my books, our long ride home patches, and all kind of motorcycle gear and T-shirts and racerback tees for the women, and coffee cups and whiskey tumblers, and even my Deep Adventure 7 Virtue cigar sampler. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick adventure.
Are you there?
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick adventure. I'm your adventure guide, Bear Woznick. We have with us someone today that's a little bit on the crazy side. He likes to run even in the middle of winter, which, I don't think is such a big deal when it's the middle of winter, like in Hawaii, but he's up in Racine, Wisconsin. I don't know if you call it running or trudging or what, but he's a runner. And people who love to run, it isn't just like getting on a treadmill and running. There's something about being outside, feeling the movement of the air, the change in the trail, especially when you're a trail runner, the having to carefully place every one of your footsteps while you run. So we were talking about the organic nature of trails and the ancient, how these paths are organically created by bunnies and then people following them, maybe bunnies and then wolves following the bunnies and then people following the game trails, and eventually these trails become little paths and humans, follow them. And we're talking about that organic, ancient, living sort of trail that we run on and mountain bike on, but also it's that ancient organic path of the Catholic Church, the organic living body of Christ that's laid down that path before us. Hey, Rich, one time I love to walk on the beach in Waikiki, so every day I do a long beach walk, which is a good workout. Walking through sand.
Pull your feet out of the sand.
Yeah, it's a workout. And I got to the edge of the trail, and there's this place over there by the Rainbow Hilton. It's on the opposite end of Waikiki where I live. And I see this guy coming in from an outrigger canoe ride. It's a super light, 21-foot carbon fiber outrigger canoe. He throws it over his shoulder, and he's walking out. And I go, "Bro, you have a good paddle." He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Where you come from?" He goes, "Oh, I came from Outrigger Canoe Club and back, just a short paddle." But he walked right out of the beach, and that particular little 60 feet of beach right there has a bunch of sharp little rocks in it underwater. And he walked right out of it barefooted, like no problem.
Yes.
And it was a super low tide. And I looked down and I go, "Dude, someone came in here and cleared out a little path to walk through in those sharp rocks." And he knew where it was.
Yeah.
It was low tide, and I was able to finally, I've gone there forever. At super low tide, I was able to, he knows right where the path is. There is something about knowing the path, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You talk about our Catholicism and this path and this ancient path, and it's been tried and true. We see the saints and yeah, you get off the path, and sometimes, for me, I just think back, in my teen years, in my early 20s, when you just sort of you're just walking, but you with no intention, and I think back and wow, you until you get. I always tell people this, like, because I'm a youth minister as well, and I say, you really don't know how far you've gotten off this path it's kind of like just sitting waiting, and you can relate if you just get in like a little boat and you just let it kind of sit in the water and it sort of takes you out. You don't realize that it's moving farther, it's moving farther away from the shore, from safety, and from God. And then and you kind of get busy, you get distracted until you look around and you're like, wow, I can hardly see the shore, and that's kind of where I was, in my early 20s, and that kind of thing. And a lot of God's grace, a lot of prayers, a lot of my mom's prayers, and just a lot of that just pulling me back to home, and to that path that we all belong on, that is a lot like running out on the trail. It's narrow, it's a single track, and it's tight, but it feels right, you
Well,
know.
let's talk a little bit more about that path, that personal path that you've run. Tell us a little bit about your journey from your youth and how you came to this place of total devotion to the Lord. How did that happen?
You know, I tell my youth, and when I was a teenager, I was very single focused. Actually, I ran cross country in high school, and I didn't. It was my sister Margie that had a friend that her dad was a marathoner, and they would run this local 4 mile race, 10 mile race. My sister would always do this 4 mile race called the Lighthouse Run here in Racine, and I never ran. And she goes, "Oh, you should do this, Rich." So like in seventh grade, I did it. I did the 4 mile, and in eighth grade, I decided to do the 10 mile, and I didn't train for it or anything. I just said, "Well, I'm just going to jump into this," and that's kind of my personality. I really haven't changed much. And in eighth grade, without training, being 80 pounds, 4'9", I jumped in and I did this 10 mile run, and I actually did pretty well. I came in fifth for my age group. And she goes, you should do cross country in high school, because I was entering high school in the fall. I said, "What's cross country?" And she tried to explain it to me that it was on trails and they could run in parks. I just didn't get it. The only running I thought of was like on a track. And instantly, like, I fell in love with it after I joined. And it was probably the only thing in high school that I was passionate about, because I was a terrible student. I didn't care much about anything. My family, my mom and dad are great, great people, good, holy people that put God first in everything, and made sure we went to mass, that we went to confession, that if we did go to mass, and I remember them saying, if you're not in a state of grace, you can't receive communion. So they made sure we'd go to confession too and receive the sacrament of reconciliation. So our family was very sacramental. But to be honest, Bear, man, I was just going through the motions, and I didn't talk to God much. I didn't um, think about God much. And I honestly, when I don't remember my confirmation, I know I got confirmed, but I don't remember. I was just so into my own life. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I don't think I was a bad guy. I wasn't necessarily um, doing a lot of bad things at some times, but then at some points I was. And that kind of gone, that sort of went into my late teen years in college. I got into playing guitar, and I got into a band, and it wasn't a worship band like I do now. And I remember coming home. I lived in Chicago, and I came home. I was about 23 years old, and every once in a while, my mom, who was very devoted, she was in charismatic renewal, and she'd walk around listening to worship music and clapping her hands and singing, and she goes, "Rich," she goes, "You ever think about playing this music? You ever think about playing in church?" Uh, and I'm like, "No, ma." And she would ask me about every couple months. And next time she said, "You ever think about playing this?" And I don't know how many times she asked me that. After a while, I said, "Ma, stop asking me. I will never play this music. I don't even like this music. Ma, I will never play in church. I can guarantee you. And so now I'm the director of worship at our Catholic church. And so that is just prayer and that is
But
grace.
what
Well,
what 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 opened the door for your that conversion, that change of direction?
you know what?
When did you get off that path,
Yeah,
get onto the narrow path?
so I had some friends in college, and we remained friends after college. That we ran together. I didn't even think about that. It comes back to running again, right? What a gift. So I'm friends with. I got a friend who's a runner who we ran on the cross country team there together, and was a was a Christian, very devoted Christian. She wasn't Catholic, and would invite me to church, her church, not the Catholic church. And I went to this Assembly of God service on a Wednesday night. And I was 26 years old, and it was in January. And I went, and I don't know why I went, um, why I thought I needed to go, because I really wasn't even going to church.
Well, Rich, hold on a second. Hold on with that thought here because we got to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to find out what in the world happened to Rich when we get back from this break. We're talking with Rich Sosa. He has this run that he's got going called the what is the name of the run you're talking about?
The run is the Via Dolorosa Trail Marathon at Holy Hill.
Yeah, and this is in Wisconsin. It's coming up on March 28th. And what's the
24th.
What is it? March 24th?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to try to make sure you could win. If you ran and no one was there, you would have won. Make sure when it comes out on the 28th. But no, so when is what is the website?
Run1010.com.
Okay, this is Bear Woznick. We're with the Bear Woznick Adventure. You're listening to it. You may be listening to it on EWTN terrestrial radio, or you might be listening to it. And that's on over like almost 500 terrestrial radio antennas. And then we're on shortwave radio going into Belarus, Russia. I've got people listening to us in the Philippines on all kinds of stations. And we have all the podcast apps and Sirius FM. But other than that, don't be worried, Rich. No one's really listening. We're talking with Rich Sosa. This is Bear Woznick. You can go to bearwoznick.com or deepadventure.com if you want to get my books or get some of our stuff. We'll be right back.
What? You want to be on camera? Okay.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We believe as Christians that life should be full of adventure. God is wild. He created the wilderness. He created the quasars. He created dinosaurs. He created those Tyrannosaurus Rexes, I think they are, with the little bitty hands and the big old jaws. And he did all kinds of crazy stuff. He made the black holes. He made the whole universe. God is wild. Don't try to tame him. Don't try to put God in a box. But if you want to get in for the ride of your life, I mean, people talk about, some of those superhero shows or The Hobbit where they get on a flying beast and they fly through the air, or they do all these radical things, or a little boy riding a dinosaur, all these little visions we have in the cartoons. Well, with God, you can ride with him. You can go on an adventure with the greatest being, the essence and existence of all that is. You can know and go on adventures with God. There's nothing more adventurous than abandoning ourselves to God's will. And a lot of people go, "Oh, dude, you ran with the bulls in Pamplona, you surfed big waves, you're a ninja black belt, all these crazy adventures that I've been on." But then I look at the woman, the older woman sitting in the pew that's there before Mass and there after Mass, and she's praying. I know she's going places in the heavenly places I've never even dreamed of being. The saints in the pew, the adventure of going into deep intercession, the adventure of seeking God's face. That is the great adventure that we're all called to. The greatest adventure we can have is to seek to love God back and to know him. So we have as our guest today Rich Sosa. He's a runner. He has a big event coming up that we're going to be talking about. He lives in Racine, Wisconsin. I can see outside his windows for those who are watching on Facebook and on YouTube. There's a bunch of white stuff out there. What is that, Rich?
That's we call that snow. SNOW. I think the W is silent.
Hey, Rich. So you were talking. We've been talking about what it's like to run trails and how that's a when you run on trails or mountain bike on trails. How trails are organic. They're living. They change through time. They have their history back when it was maybe just a bunny trail and then a fox chasing the bunny and then deer following that same path down to the water and then humans began to follow that path and
Even
eventually sometimes.
even bears.
Yeah, eventually even bears, and also it becomes the roads we're on were basically once a bunny trail, and so paths are living, and so and they're organic, they're changing, and we've talked about following the ancient path of Catholicism, but we were touching base on your own personal journey, your own path that you were on, as a runner, all about paths, so your path it kind of led you down the easy way for a while, how you some paths go uphill and some paths kind of take a little easy jog. You were
Mhm.
kind of detouring off into an easy jog, and then something happened. What was it?
Yeah. So when I was 26, I was telling before we went to break, a friend of mine invited me to her church, and I was like, yeah, why not? And kind of blasé about it, but I know that there's this you refer to tribes a lot, and I it's the same thing. There's this tribe of Christianity that we have, people praying for you, people encouraging you to join the tribe, so to speak. So I always had that. I always had people supporting me, encouraging me, and whatnot, family members, and I was able to see them living their life in holy ways, but still that didn't attract me necessarily, or so I thought. So I remember this Wednesday night. I'm 26 years old. It's January. It's cold, and I'm sitting in this Assembly of God church, and I'm a little uncomfortable. And the pastor gets up and he starts speaking, and I didn't realize how broken I was, Bear. How low I was, how unworthy I felt, how shameful I felt. And he just started talking about like God's love, how much God loves you and how precious you are. And he don't care where you've been, what you've done. And I mean, it just spoke directly to my heart. And he did this the call to come forward and give your life to Christ. And I kept saying, man, I kept thinking, I want to do this. And I want to try it, but this is one of the most risky things I'm going to do because I was afraid. I was very afraid that I was going to lose my life, the life I had been living, and a lot of the things that I thought were valuable. Like drinking and smoking and doing all sorts of things that I thought were so called fun.
Mhm.
And I thought, if I become truly Christian, and if I become um and I give my life to Christ, how boring of a life that is going to be. Like I thought this. Like and I'm like and now I'm like, what are you thinking? And so I took that risk. I went radical. I got up there. I went to the stage. It's an Assembly of God church, so it's just a stage. And I got on my knees, and somebody put their hands on my shoulders, and I just started weeping. I just started weeping like a little boy. Everything, every sin that I ever held, just released there. Every bitterness, every shortcoming, whatever it was, my whole life was just there, given, surrendered to God. And and in the rush, more powerful than any wave that you've ever ridden, and you know this, just coming over me of love, I won't forget that. And then I went back to my seat and I could not stop smiling. I just could not believe that this was happening to me. All these years of not having God in my life, truly, truly not giving my life to God and not accepting Him to be my God was finally a reality. And so I remember, going back and having this experience, and the funny thing happened is instead of continuing on with this church, I went back to mass. I went back to our roots. I went back to that path, and I started going back to mass and church, receiving the sacraments and whatnot. And you know, um, I didn't become this holy saint, and I'm still not at that point. And that woman that took me there was actually my wife's sister. And so we're still have this relationship, that's family. And so I go back, and again, you think about like the tribe mentality here is people looking out for you, God using people to do His work, and God pouring His grace over you to keep you safe and bring you back to where you need to be. I just feel so blessed. That this can happen to anybody. And I tell people all the time, like, allow God to surprise you. Like once you have life with God and you give your life to God, He just wants to give you life and life to the fullest. And that's why, like with 1010 Adventures, 1010 is like life is never as good as it is if it's with God. Everything tastes better, everything feels better, everything is better. And that doesn't say that there's not struggle. There are struggles, there are challenges, but it's authentic. And allow God to surprise you, because without God, sometimes we have our own plan, but with God, there's a big plan, and it is an adventure, so so much has happened since then. There's so many more little witness stories that have happened since then. So many falls, so many times I've had to get myself back up. That's just to me, that's the beginning. And since then, there has been so much grace, so much learning, so much more God moments in my life.
We're talking with Rich Sosa. He has the organization. What is it called again, Rich?
1010 Adventures LLC.
1010 Adventures. You've been listening to Rich talk about that St. Augustine moment that God calls us to, that moment of saying, I give all, I surrender all to you, Jesus. Uh, Augustine was living, kind of a wild life, to say the least. And voices would, like, in his head would go, well, if we won't get to do this or we won't get to do that if you give your life to Jesus. But finally he said, okay, Jesus, I'm going to give you my life, but not right now. I'll do it later. And then finally it was like a not, if not now, when moment. And he just said, Jesus, I give you all. I surrender my life to you. And he had that powerful conversion experience. The way you described it, uh, Rich, was very much like my experience at the Catholic Charismatic Prayer Group I was at when I was 19 years old. I was prayed with, actually in a back bedroom where people would be praying, and unexpected infusion of God's power and love. I was with someone just recently in Israel, and they had seen the people who loved Jesus. They were on this path to coming closer to God, but hadn't really experienced Him. And she was at the primacy of Peter when the Holy Spirit broke through. And so it is this kind of calling to the Lord, but also calling to the ancient path, and walking that ancient path of Catholicism. We'll be right back with the Bear Woznick adventure. Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Woznick adventure. The thing that we value the most from our listeners, it's so cool. Every day I get Facebook messages or an email for those people who subscribe, to me, go to my website, deepadventure.com. You can write me by email or all kinds of different ways people reach out to me, and they talk about what a great impact our reality TV show has had on them. The Long Ride Home, a motorcycle-based reality TV show. Uh, I would say we get a half a dozen or more every day, people reaching out to me saying that this TV show, Long Ride Home, has had an impact on their lives, has had an impact on especially women who have a brother or a brother-in-law or father or son that they love so much, but they just like they can't share the gospel with them like the way a man could. And men want stuff to be gritty and they want it to be real. And so we made the Long Ride Home TV show for them. We're actually right now working on season 2. We've already filmed it. For those of you who are looking forward to seeing more of Long Ride Home, we did 10 episodes on EWTN, and they've been airing it ever since they first aired it in June. They just keep re-airing it, changing time zones, so you got to check with them when it's airing. But season 1, we rode from Cocoa Beach, Florida, all the way to San Diego, and then I went up to Santa Cruz. Guys on motorcycles, Jesus and motorcycles, what could get better than that? We had mass here and there, up down in the Big Bend country of Texas. And season 2, we've already shot. We rode with Archbishop Wensky from Miami down to Key West, southernmost point in the continental United States. And then we rolled thunder all the way up to New Jersey, up there to Father Brian's church and where Coach McKenna is. And then we rolled thunder down the Blue Ridge Parkway, down the Tail of the Dragon. So season 2 is called The Tail of the Dragon. And season 3, while we're working on season 2 to editing, we'll be shooting season 3 at my home on in the islands. We'll be shooting on Oahu. We'll be going to Molokai, to Kalapapa, to St. Damien, St. Mary Ann's ministry place, and where my father was a deacon. And then we're going to roll thunder all through the Big Island and go to the city of refuge. That is very much like the city of refuge mentioned in the Old Testament. If you were being hunted for something that you did wrong in the Big Island, if you could get to this place of refuge, no one was allowed to come in and kill you. They couldn't exact a death sentence. However, you stayed there the rest of your life. It was the same thing like the city of refuge in the Old Testament. God is our city of refuge. It's the place that you run to. The Catholic Church is the city of God. St. Augustine called it. We are, as Christians, the city on the hill. We are all under a death sentence where our life for everyone ends. And I know when I share this radio show that there may be several hundred people that are listening that won't be alive next week. Maybe because of old age, or maybe because something sudden. But we all know that we have a death sentence, that there's a time when we're going to come to see God face to face. There's life, death, judgment, heaven, or hell. And you know what? Whether you go to heaven or whether you spend your life eternally separated from God is 100%, 1,000% under your control. Jesus came. The Father gave the very best he could, which is his eternally begotten Son. Jesus gave all he could on the cross for you, a total expression of God's love. Jesus' arms on the cross, raising your dignity back to the Imago Dei, the image made in the image and likeness of God. Whether you open your heart to Jesus or not is 1,000,000,000% under your control. You don't have to wonder, am I going to heaven? Give your life to Jesus. Abandon yourself to his love every day. Remember, our goal in life isn't so much to get to heaven. Our goal in life is to just love Jesus back. So what we're asking you to do and challenging you to do is just doing exactly what our guest Rich Sosa did. There's this time of we're being afraid if we give our life to Jesus, he's going to make us into something we're not. The fact is that grace perfects the nature. Jesus gave you your DNA, your spiritual DNA, your soul's DNA. When you were conceived, whether or not you were even a mistake, or maybe you were even conceived in the middle of a rape, that inception of your spiritual, rational soul, Imago Dei, wasn't. Jesus placed that nature in you, and he's not going to rob you of the very way that he created you. He's going to help you to become more of who you are, not less of who you are. John 10:10. Rich, what does John 10:10 mean to you? Our guest, Rich Sosa.
Oh man, I give you life to the full, and to me that means like go live your life the way I had it plan, and be it, you know, live it radical and unhinged and close to me. You know what you were talking about right now, it reminded me of this one video I was watching, and I was kind of having this conversation with this priest friend of mine, Father Charles Clement, down in Quad Cities. And what you said, like, God made your DNA. Jesus created you the way he created you. And there was watching this vocation video of this priest, and in this priest's office, he has a recording studio. He's got a guitar and a keyboard and like this computer and this recording equipment. And this is in the pastor's office, and he's a young priest, and and somebody asked him, says, "Well, why you're a priest? Why do you have this recording equipment in your office?" And he said, "Because God called me to be a priest, and part of me is that I make music." And you know, and that's the thing. Like, I think we're so afraid of, like, when we give our life to Christ, when we give our life to the church, that somehow we're going to have to abandon these things. I'm a musician as well, and I lead worship in church, but I also write songs. I also record songs. I put out CDs, um, and that's not a that. And when I first gave my life to Christ, I was a little confused because at first I thought, oh, I have to abandon my music. And so I actually stopped when I gave my life to Christ. I actually stopped playing music. Like, I thought that was bad. And it didn't even bear, it didn't even come to my mind, didn't cross my mind, like, wow, I could actually play music that's edifying, you know, that is worship, or that really gives homage to God. And so didn't realize that that was a God-given gift, you know. And so it's obviously it's a progression. And so, you know, God made you, whoever's listening, like, if you have gifts, like, he's given you these desires in your heart to use them to glorify him. Use those, glorify him. I mean, you're a surfer. You're using that to glorify him, to bring people to attract, and a life in Christ is a very attractive thing. I mean, that's the thing that brought me to Christ, is I saw people with true joy, not even happiness, but joy, like real joy in their life, because of what Jesus was doing in their heart and in their life. And I'm
I,
like, I want that. I don't know what that is, but I want that.
you know,
You know?
I remember once I was there's a big prayer worship service. The whole city got together. Every denomination got together to have a worship service, because worship is the ultimate spiritual warfare, right?
Yeah.
The children of Israel always sent their choir out first when they went into battle. You know, poor, you want to join the choir? Let me think about it. No, but I was, for some reason, I got stuck in the front row, which I hate. I'm usually all the way in the back, and there's this guy sitting next to me. While the music's playing, he's kind of playing the drums while the band is warming up on his legs, you know. And I used to be a drummer.
Yeah.
And I go, dude, you play the drums? And he goes, that's who I am. That's what I do. I'm a drummer. And I go, okay. So then I start praying for him. And I actually prayed, Lord, reach into his heart and squeeze his heart. And I meant for God to give him a physical experience in a real sense. And after about 10 minutes of worship, I look over at him, and he looks like he's kind of gasping. I go, what's going on, dude? And he goes, dude, it's like something's just tugging at, squeezing my heart. You know, it's like, you know how you get a lump in your throat? It's kind of like that. And I go, dude, that's God tugging on your heart. He wants you to give your life to him. He goes, okay, I'll give my life to him. And I go, but dude, you got to give your whole life to him. That means you got to give up everything, even your drums. Because God really does ask us to surrender it all.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. And I prayed for him, and he actually had that experience some people call being slain in the spirit. He was sitting right next to me, and he just slumped over for a while in the chair. And then he experienced God's love so much. And then that young kid gave his life to the Lord, and within about 2 months, his other musician friends started coming. I used to be a youth group minister, and we went from 3 kids to 60 kids in about 6 weeks, a lot of them musicians. And then, but once he surrendered that to the Lord for about 6 months, no music, Then the
Yeah.
Lord gave it back to him. It reminds me of Moses, when he's out in the desert and God says, Moses, what do you got in your hand? He goes, it's my shepherd's rod. It's my career. It's my prestige in the community. It's how I feed my family. It's me. It's what I am. It's what I do. And God says, throw it down. And when he threw it down, it became a hissing snake. He could see what those gifts were when he tried to use it for himself and for his own glory. But when he picked it up, it says it became a hissing snake. But when he picked it up again, God said, it says, and the rod of Moses became the rod of God. And that's what it means when we abandon ourselves to the Lord's will. God doesn't just change us, take everything, our whole nature away. He actually causes us to lay it down, die to it, and then he resurrects it with his own power and glory. Dude, Rich Sosa, we're out of time. What's your website again? You got to give it to me real quick because we're actually over time.
Run1010.com.
Go there and you can join Rich running on March 24th. The trail, what's it called? The trail what?
The Via Dolorosa Trail Marathon, Way of Suffering, and you will suffer with Christ.
Yeah, in Wisconsin. This is Bear Woznick. Go to our website, bearwoznick.com. We'll see you guys next week. Aloha. Viva Cristo Rey.